Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag in Italy Travel Podcast. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton.
And today we are wrapping up our miniseries on Naples with Naples Condensed 3. We are at the long end of a line. End of a long line.
Sure. I'm kind of sad though.
I
I just want to almost make like a Naples only podcast now a little bit.
It's been a lot of fun because I think we came to this, we did some research here and there to kind of fill the gaps, but we've been visiting Naples so much over the past year, just here and there for you leaving, for you coming back, for anything that might have to be done like at the hospital and this and that. So it's just like, oh, we've kind of, not in a bad way, by the way, no weird hospital stuff, it's just where that's right. Tests done. And so I'm like, wow, we've really kind of come to know Naples, which is nice. It's right down the street practically. But it's been fun kind of like filling those gaps of like, what is that thing I keep seeing?
Yeah.
So we're...
or what is underneath me that I've never seen before.
Yes, it's someone's head. If you haven't heard that episode, it's someone's head. So... in this episode, we're gonna basically end it with sites and day trips, and that's and bid you all adieu. But before we get started, I just want to say a big, massive thank you to everyone who's been listening along, who followed from this mini-series, who's been leaving a review. If you haven't and you'd like to, you can do so on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also go to our website, onlyabag.com, where you can find articles. You can bookmark them for a later reading. A lot of them are kind of more helpful, I think, than informational in terms of like how to get from here to there and less about in the information of something. Just because at a certain point it was just going to be copy and pasting Wikipedia, and that's a little bit weird, So like, nah, but we can tell you how to get somewhere or what to do when you're there. We can give our opinion. It's a very opinionated website. You can also leave us a comment question, or send us a comment or question if there's a question you have. If you're coming to Italy, if you have a question about your trip, anything like that, we'd be more than happy to answer them. And then if you like what you're hearing and you want to support the podcast, you can do so on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/onlyabag, or using our affiliate links in the description or on the website. And we get a little small percentage anytime you use them to book a trip or book a hotel or book a tour, anything like that. And they help out the channel and help us buy new equipment, as these microphones we've been using. Thank you all so much to those of you who've been using the links and who have been donating, as well as help like basically web hosting fees. And then once we move off of Spotify to a different podcast host, but obviously you will still be able to find us on Spotify, it'll pay for that too, which will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's hop into it. Let's start, I guess, with maybe the sites of Naples.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the sites. You want to go first?
Perfect. All right. So I think a fun starting point is the Opera House.
Yeah.
Just because in terms of the oldest operational opera house in the world, older than Milan's La Scala and Venice's La Fenice, which are both famous opera houses that I learned just for this podcast, because I've heard of La Scala, but I've heard a lot of restaurants called La Scala, which is obviously not what they're referencing, or me in this episode. I'm referencing the famous opera house in Milan. But yeah, from early to mid 1700s, this opera house was started. Apparently it was awful. And then in the awful in terms of acoustics, great in terms of vibes, I think. And then in the early 1800s, they renovated the whole thing, made it essentially all the gold and red it is today. It is genuinely fascinating. If this is essentially the first episode you're hearing about this, really beautiful. It's operation. You can still go there during, any time of the year for a tour. However, in November, this month that you're listening to this in, is when opera season starts. So if you'd like to go for opera season, it goes until, I think, June. Tickets are not cheap. I want to throw that out there. It is. I don't know what opera tickets cost. I thought they would be not that much. They're hundreds of euros minimum, depending on like where you sit in box seats. There are also a little section devoted to listening only. If you you pay like $30 or $40, by the way, to listen to the opera and not be able to see the opera.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess a major part of opera is the singing, obviously. So
for sure, yeah.
If that's all you're into, yeah.
But I also don't know where it is, because it makes almost me think, I'm like, is it behind like a pillar or something? Because is it?
Oh, I assume it's a different room.
And that's the other thing. So I'm like, all right, if it's a different
maybe
room,
you're not
then you're
listening live. You're be listening
that's
to.
That's the thing, or like
you're
literally
listening
a
to
microphone.
The mics. Yeah.
But then it's not getting it's like what's the
in
difference
the
between that
room.
and a recording at that point? If you're not in the room and hearing the acoustics. So I am kind of curious what that would mean.
Yeah.
But that's the opera house. It's Teatro di San Carlo, Theater of St. Charles. It's in the Piazza del Plebiscito, right next to, if you're actually just curious, the Cafe Grimbinos. I'm definitely mispronouncing that, but it also happens to be the oldest operational cafe in Italy. So in case you, by yourself, with your travel partner, with your family, wanted to just have a day or an evening where you feel like, let's just be fancy. Let's rent tuxes and dresses and go to the opera house and drink coffee afterwards. I don't know the accent, I apologize. And that is a fun way to do it, I think, because it's again, that little slice of real, interesting, old world luxury, I think, right next to the rest of Naples, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems really cool.
After the theater, what about, speaking of underworld, Naples. I was going from old world to underworld. I don't know if that worked.
Oh, okay, that
Sorry.
makes sense.
Naples. What are the catacombs?
Yes, so there is a lot of Naples underground. We've talked about lots of different parts of the underground of Naples. In our recent episode, we talked about 2 different catacombs. There
Yes.
is the catacombs of San Gennaro and the catacombs of San Gaudiosus. San Gaudiosus is my favorite catacomb because it has heads in the walls behind some interesting frescoes. There are also heads above ground at the Fontanella Cemetery caves, where a lot of the victims of the plague, their bodies were tossed, and then a couple hundred years later, people came around and were organizing the bodies and naming the skulls and asking for wishes and having little chit chats with them.
Which is kind of it's very kind of sweet little way of like reclaiming them, like reclaiming that bit of history.
Yeah, and giving them some honor and some dignity
Yeah.
that they didn't get in death. There's also the super creepy, weird statues of the Museo San Severo, which are the real human skeletons with metal and different sort of sculpture around them.
Those are more nightmare fuel.
They are. They are.
Yes.
Yes. Beware. They are very scary looking. I find them very cool.
Yes. Awesome.
So that is some of Naples underground, creepy Naples.
Yeah, if you basically I think we made the comment, if you have like Atlas Obscura on your computer, like a little bookmark, or you like to go to the website and check different things, there's a lot in Naples that you can go to that's even not listed on Atlas Obscura, but that's just kind of interesting and obscure, and is weird and just definitely part of yesteryear kind of thing. It's definitely a vibe of like, there was a time where that was in vogue and that people did this thing, and like, I don't know, made animatons of bodies with little weird things.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
And speaking of weird and kind of creepy Naples underground, there's also the Galleria Borbonica, which are the bourbon tunnels that you can visit and see. Basically, these were used as air raid shelters in during World War II, and there's still like motorcycles and cars and like people's belongings down there. These people did leave. It's not like, there wasn't that much tragedy
Like, didn't
down
want to
there.
bring the car with them. Like,
Exactly. They just didn't want to move everything out. So it's really odd. So you can go visit that as well.
Kind of speaking of archaeology, because it's a bit like archaeology, finding segues here as we go along. The Archaeological Museum in Naples is probably arguably one of the finest archaeological museums in Italy.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, but also a lot of other people say that. It is, and it has predominantly filled with things found in Pompeii and Herculaneum, as well as they have a little Egypt wing, which are things that are for sure stolen from Egypt. There's no way they did not steal it. And there's also the secret room, which is a room, the triple X rated room, of all the things they found in Pompeii that were deemed a little bit too risque for the general public, and actually had a long history of being open and closed until finally it was opened permanently to the public in 2000.
That's so recent.
I know.
That's crazy.
So it is, I think, there's an age limit to enter. I think you have to be 13 or 15, something like that, to enter. There's a certain, maybe 10, I don't know, but they're like, you can't be a kid in there. But it is a fun little room behind a cast iron gate in the Archaeological Museum. But the rest of the museum is fascinating as well if you are interested in just a I don't know, a day inside, if it's a hot day inside and you kind of want to get a bit of history. It's also kind of interesting to go potentially before you go to Pompeii, if you're planning on Pompeii, Herculaneum as well, just to kind of get some pre-information, pre-knowledge, in terms of just like things written on plaques, just kind of know what I'm expecting when you get to Pompeii. Because as much as Pompeii is beautiful, and I think part of the reason it's beautiful is they don't have a lot of information on plaques. Like, they kind of left a lot of it as this untouched ancient city they uncovered kind of thing. So it isn't like plaques and signs and this and that everywhere you go. It's very much like, if there's nobody on the road, you can easily see what this would have looked like thousands of years ago. So I think that's a benefit, but it also means without like a guide or anything like that, you can kind of feel lost. So going to the museum ahead of time can help solve that.
I'm curious too. It's kind of my understanding, or I guess it is my understanding, that some of the restoration and preservation work that is done for Pompeii is actually done in Naples, because there are so many, there's so many restorers of art in Naples, but I think there are a lot of archaeological restorers who do things in facilities in Naples because they have that equipment and things. Yeah. So I think that potentially at the Archaeological Museum, they have stuff from Pompeii that has been restored. And I think that there's basically communication of that stuff going on. There's a museum at Pompeii, but because they're able to do a lot of restoration in Naples, I think there's also a lot at the Archaeological Museum
as well. Yeah. And moving kind of beyond, not beyond that, but moving kind of more into the past or the future, depending on the time period we're talking about here. One thing, Castel dell'Ovo is older much than the rediscovered Pompeii, but I think, and yeah, I mean, the original island there was much older than Pompeii, obviously. And then
I hadn't thought about it that way.
I know, right?
Okay.
It's been there a minute. Not the actual castle, obviously. The castle is very old, but when it was built, Pompeii was already around and kicking.
The
Interesting
castle part, yes.
Just for its worth, there is Castel Nuovo, different castle. We've mentioned that before, but interestingly, it was built in like 1297, and the gall to call something the new castle still to this day, that was built 700 and some odd years ago, 728 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like, that's how crazy is that? That's still like the new. It's I don't know. I feel like sometimes when you have a.
Do you know how old Castel Sant'Elmo is?
I think
Is
that
it newer?
I believe it is newer, which is weird. Yeah.
Okay, so they just didn't. They were like, no, that
They just didn't
name's
update.
stuck.
Yeah,
We're not gonna call
it's a
anything the new
200-year-old castle at that point. I think when Castel Sant'Elmo was built, because it was that originally started as a fortified house villa, and then they were like, well, it's not a castle, and then it became a castle, and they're like, well, it's not the new castle, the newer castle. So they just I think left it as named it after a beloved Sesame Street creature.
Yeah, as we all should do to everything.
So Castel Saint.
That's a joke, by the way. It's obviously not named after Elmo.
Yes, sorry, just in case. It's actually Erasmus became Elmo, but Castel Sant'Uovo, Castel dell'Uovo, is Castle of the Egg. As legend has it, Virgil placed an egg in the fortifications or the dungeons or the deepest level, and said this egg will keep the city of Naples as well as this castle intact. If the egg were to ever break, everything disaster. Horrible disaster for Naples as well as for the castle. Kind of worked, I think, but in the 1400s, the archway, one of the stone archways on which this castle was built, actually collapsed, and
Ostensibly crushed that egg,
ostensibly
right?
crushed the egg, and Queen Joanna I had to swear to the people of Naples that she had replaced the egg, and that not to worry. It will continue.
This new egg is just as strong.
Yes, this new egg is just as strong. And again, I assume to this day that there is an egg somewhere just there.
But you can't go see it, right?
You can't go see it. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
really want to see that egg.
deeply curious about this egg, and I'm also kind of curious. Like I think we all naturally assume chicken egg, but I'm like, where are chickens even from? I'm like, was it a pigeon egg? Was it some other kind of egg? Was it a duck egg? I have no idea, right?
I don't know.
I'm like, is it a platypus egg? Probably not, but it might have been.
Snake egg?
Snake egg? So this is kind of I think I defaulted a chicken egg. I'm like, it might not have been a chicken. So that's Castel Sant'Elmo, and it's also built on the site of the original. The island is actually a separate island called Megaride, or Megaride if you say it in a very American accent, and it's the original site of essentially what became Naples. Like the original habitation started there, named Partenopeo, or Partenope, as to the siren who washed ashore after apparently failing to capture Odysseus. It's a very strange story. I'm not sure like it was how or why. It was just sort of like I don't know. That sort of left to the footnotes of history kind of thing. It's like, was it like teasing from the sisters because you had two sisters, or was it more of a like there was an honor thing involved? I don't know. But anyway, she washed up on the shore of this island. The Greeks found her and thought, you know what, we'll name. Apparently recognized her, and then we'll name this island after her, this town after her. Which to this day, people from Naples are called Parthenopes. Parthenopea
cool.
is a way of referring to as somebody from Naples, which I thought was kind of fascinating. So I think that's Castel dell'Ovo, and I think that's pretty much the last of the major sites that we wanted to mention.
A Christmas alley.
Oh my God, how could I
Nathaniel.
forget?
The magical Christmas alley, which is only called that by English speakers and kind of like Western tourists. It's
Yes.
not what it's actually called. The nickname for it in Italian is Via dei Precepi, which is the road of the
Precipice?
Crushes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Precepe. I think Presepio is what it's called in Napolitano, or maybe that's a different
Okay, that
Italian
makes
word
sense,
for
yeah.
it. But you might see Precepe, or you might see Precepi for multiple Presepio. Anyways, we say Precepe in Italian in southern Italy. So this is the actual name of that street is Via San Giorgio Armeno, if you're looking for it on a map. And along this, it's basically one block. It's a pretty short street filled with makers of these precipe, which are creches, which are nativity scenes. And it's not just like probably what you think of as a nativity scene. They are these what can be incredibly elaborate and massive scenes, which will very likely have, Mary, baby Jesus, and Joseph, the wise men, all the classics. But also, it's set in like a I don't know, medieval urban setting
yeah.
of Italy. And so they have all these other characters that are classic Italian characters. And they are little terracotta figurines. All of it's made by hand. It's incredible. You can also they've now like done modern day little statues. They have like the English royal family they'll make is these little statues, not to put in the creche, but
Specifically English royal family.
yeah, there's a lot of the English. I think maybe English tourists want them, or maybe
Oh, I can see that.
I don't
Okay.
know. But there's a lot of them, and
Or
so
American
like
tourists, honestly.
maybe
Sometimes American
yeah.
tourists love the English royal family.
I remember seeing whenever we first went, several of Queen Elizabeth, at the time
Okay, interesting.
in 2015. Yeah, lots of the soccer players. They'll do little terracotta statues of the
You know,
soccer
it's
players.
not trying to be funny, but it's like the only European country that hasn't like ruled over Naples. So they could just be like, honestly, this one's for y'all. Appreciate it. Like the French, the Spanish, the Austrians, everybody
Yeah.
else, the Germans, yeah, everyone else had a hand in it. But like, not the British. We appreciate y'all. So
That's
no way.
interesting. I hadn't thought about it that
It's
way.
probably definitely not that, but I'm wondering if they're just like, they don't have the same sort of animosity.
Maybe.
I have no idea.
So it's really cool, and this happens. They're there all year round. So obviously at Christmas time, there's more festive along this street, but you can go all year to see these things and purchase things from the shops, local artisans.
It's very cool. I mean, even on Christmas, even non-Christmas, it's cool. But on Christmas, it's like around that time. It's really kind of interesting because again, Italy. We're going to talk about this in some future episodes actually coming out soon. Is kind of Christmas stuff or winter stuff, and it's not like I think like even if you're not interested too much in Christmas like as a celebration, but just more of like Christmas markets, even the pagan side of things, like Germany, Austria does it really well. Christmas markets, spiced wine, trees, like lights, fires.
I love that you put trees in. Oh, you mean Christmas trees?
Christmas trees, yes.
That makes sense.
I don't know. I'm big into arborists.
I mean, I love trees. Trees are always good. Yeah.
So what I think like Italy doesn't really do that. They're like, we don't really know to do a Christmas time. Like it's, and I think because
Yeah.
again, it's more of arguably, I know that Italy is a sort of a very Catholic place, but I almost think it's not their tradition that makes sense. It's like, it is a very Germanic sort of thing that became Catholic rather, but I'm like, they that La Befana is a January 7th witch. That's a thing. And that was a thing for a while, but I don't know, like, and then Santo Stefano, which is the day after Christmas, the 26th of December is a huge holiday, arguably bigger than Christmas. But I think it's like, people are just like, yeah, Christmas is kind of like, we're still open sometimes on Christmas.
It's a bit somber, Christmas, and which is odd because I feel like Germany, it's not a Germany podcast, but Germany does like the jolly side of Christmas
Yes.
and the very dark, scary side of Christmas with like Krampus and all that. But Italy is just in the middle. It's just kind of like, oh,
It's the cold side of
somber.
Christmas. It's like if you're bad enough, you get cold. We can heat this house finally.
yeah.
I think that's usually the
so sad.
vibe here in Italy.
Yeah.
So that's the Christmas market.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you do want some festive fun, you can go to the Christmas alley via
Yeah,
the
yeah.
recipe in Naples.
And I think moving just straight to day trips,
Yeah, let's
if
do
that
it.
works, just to kind of move it in. We've talked about this before. I think that's actually our probably most recent episodes on day trips, but we just want to touch them again very, very quickly. If you are just listening to the condensed versions and you are staying near the train station, like we've recommended or said that you might want to, there's essentially two types of day trips from Naples. There's the ruins day trips, and then there's the islands and the sea day trips. And I do think that people kind of split them. Some people do obviously go to Pompeii because like, well, we're going to go to Pompeii for Naples, but then like mostly we're going to be Amalfi Coast, Sorrento, Positano, that kind of thing, Capri. And then other people are like, no, I'm here for the history, and there is a lot of it. So just I guess starting with the ruins, if you will.
Yeah.
Pompeii, easiest one.
Classic.
You should go. I mean, there's really not much else to say. Then you should really probably go.
And it will take it will take a full day
Yes,
if you're really going
wanna-
to see it.
yeah.
It takes a long time to walk around.
Even if you're running through it and you're skipping some villas and this and that, it's still going to take half a day. Plus, getting there takes about an hour or maybe 30 minutes from Naples, depending which train you take, Campania Express or Circumbus Viana. But still, it's a bit of a distance away, and it does take a decent amount of time. Before that is Herculaneum in Ercolana. It's a town called Ercolana, which is the Italian word for Herculaneum. It's actually a different town. In like the 90s, they actually voted to change their name to Herculaneum in adopting this old school name. I thought it was interesting. Yeah, it was called something. I honestly can't remember what it was called, but it was just called like a different name. And then in the 90s, they held a referendum. It was like, should we name ourselves Ercolana in honor of what we used to be called? And they voted to do it.
Nice.
So Ercolana is actually quite a new name in the last 30 years. But that is another place that's a much wealthier version of Pompeii originally. Now, unfortunately, it's a little bit less preserved, a little bit more difficult to preserve, and it's quite a bit smaller. It's not as popular. But if you're interested in history, interested in ruins, if you wanted to just kind of see something new and interesting and different, Ercolana or Herculaneum would probably be on that list.
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And if I mean, I would, again, it's terrible to say, but it's like if you had to see one, Pompeii kind of makes sense because there's a bit more of the feel of the city, of the town that you can kind of see.
And there's more that's been discovered, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly like the what they believe the original sizes of these cities were. If Herculaneum
It was a
was
much smaller, more resort town versus Pompeii, which is, I think, an actual, like
a
still
big functioning
and still
town.
had people there on like vacation, but it was still fundamentally people were living there.
It's a whole town. It's
Exactly.
huge. Yeah.
And so it's definitely, if you had to be one, that would be the one. And so that's ruins going south from Naples. If you went west from Naples instead, you hit Cumae, Cumae. That is the original Greek settlement in mainland Italy. So it's the first ever Greek settlement during Magna Graecia of mainland Italy, which is just near Naples. It's kind of fascinating in the sense of, I mean, there are also Greeks, obviously, in Sicily already. There were Greeks in Ischia, which is an island that you could swim to from Naples, from Cumae. Like, it's right there. It's right there. But I love that it's not technically mainland, so they don't technically count it. But that one's fascinating. There's still archaeological museum there. It's in the Campi Flegrei, which is these caldera that fill up and expand and contract, and they make the ocean there rise and fall. In Pozzuoli, for example, in the 80s, overnight, quite literally overnight, the caldera expanded pretty abruptly, raising the water level, or I guess lowering the water level, raising the seafloor, making a lot of boats all of a sudden are still to this day no longer are able to dock there. Kind of basically a bit scary. Everyone's like, oh, so the water level went from like 15 feet to like 6 feet, and it's a whole thing.
It's like instant terraforming.
Yeah, and near it is Baia, which is a partially underwater city. Again, built halfway on a caldera, and that half the caldera is sunk, so half the city is sunk below the waves. Because it was known as very much a town of vices, I think people thought of it like as a
sign from God.
Yeah, they were like, that was expected. That was you godless people.
Or was it the sea saying, "We will take this for
Yes,
ourselves"?
exactly.
Seems super fun. Thank
I
you.
think that's exactly what it was. I think that this is you guys created. We love your work you created here. So those are all kind of around the same area. You can visit the Cumaean Sibyl, which is the Sibyl of Cumae, the prophetess of Cumae. You've heard of the Oracle of Delphi. This is the Oracle of Cumae, popularized and famous-ized, immortalized by Virgil. Sort of an interesting, just a woman who essentially held the ear of the entire Roman Empire at one point, and sort of was immortalized. And it was just a fascinating thing. She has a cave there you can visit. And last but not least, there's the entrance, one of the many entrances to the underworld. Avernus is there. Just if you want to go and visit the underworld on your trip to Naples, you can do so.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't?
That's what I'm asking. Who would not? It's incredible. There's a lot of really fascinating things over there. That whole little section is just, there's like a cave with some gas that will knock you out. It's the whole
maybe
area.
Don't go in that cave.
Well, yeah, that cave is a no. And also just next to that, kind of not really, but moving back towards Naples, near Posillipo, kind of near that area, there is a long underground tunnel. One of the tunnels that is not mentioned at the Galleria Borbonica, something like that. It's just I think it's just called the Galleria Napolitano, and it's essentially where, just outside of that, is where Virgil is entombed.
Yes, okay.
And if you want to visit Virgil's tomb, very famous for having put an egg under a castle, as well as for basically being kind of an amazing writer. Apparently, like that seems to be his thing. And no, he's a tomb there. He was given the rights of a Greek hero, basically one parent being a god, one being a human, and entombed there. And now, of course, somebody apparently took his ashes in the Middle Ages to move them and lost them en route. So he's not there anymore, but the tomb still is.
Absolutely wild.
God, ridiculous. And you can still visit if you're curious.
Mm-hmm. Moving from there to the sea, do you want to talk about some of the trips that you can take by boat to some of the islands?
Hit me with it.
Okay, so there are 3 islands that you might visit off of the Napolitano coast, right?
Yeah.
There is Capri, Ischia, and the one that I always say wrong.
Procida.
I'm putting way too much emphasis on it. Procida.
That's perfect.
So Capri, you've heard of Capri. If you listen to that episode, I think I kind of poo-pooed Capri. But if you're planning on going there, it really is awesome. I think it just gets talked up so much that I don't want people to feel like they're missing out if they don't go. It's lovely. You should go. It's cool. If you don't go, it's fine. You're not missing out on like what will change your life or something very likely.
Exactly.
Ischia is pretty famous for thermal baths and spas. Very cool.
it's also much bigger than Capri. So if you happen to, if you're thinking about spending the night there, it's not like Capri. It's kind of like the city of Capri on the island of Capri. There's also the city area frazione of Ana Capri on the island of Capri. With Ischia, there is a lot more like small
There are many
towns and
towns,
fractions. Yeah, and it's not like a walkable thing necessarily. I mean, you can, but like I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. And it's so if you're staying there and you're looking for an island getaway that has a similar but not quite the same vibe to Capri, that would be an option. It's just a lot more space and it's a little bit cheaper. It's also a lot cheaper to get to. Capri is 25 to 30 euros. It's like it starts at 6 euros to get to Ischia.
Yeah, I
So,
find that fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating little place. It's also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually before the end of piracy in like the 1860s, 1850s, 1840s. The last person kidnapped was from Ischia in Italy.
That's,
Really sad, I know.
yeah.
Yeah, so apparently they just went through a horrific time
Wow.
after the fall of the Roman Empire because the Roman Empire was protecting them, and a lot of them, Naples, like I'm not protecting that island that's way out there. That's ridiculous. It's too far to get to. So, yeah, it was a kind of an interesting relationship with piracy, basically.
Wow. Okay.
So Ischia, come visit. I think that's the new logo now.
Famous for piracy and spas.
Yeah, I think the piracy thing not so much. They're just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just sad.
yeah.
So
And then Procida.
Procida. What is Procida about? I remember it from the.
What is it about? I
what
love
is
it.
it about?
What's their deal? What are
Well,
they doing?
What's
love it.
stuck in my mind from when we talked about it on the episode is that if you're going to visit, you can take a ferry to all of these
Mm-hmm.
places. Obviously, that's the way to get there. You can take your car on the ferry during the summer months.
Yeah, but not
you
the winter.
cannot take your car there in the winter months.
Or the off season in general. So just not
Yes.
in the summer. Yeah. And I don't know, again, I really don't know if that's for Napolitano specifically who are like, I'm going to bring the car and we're going to drive. We have a house out there. We have a bit of land out there, something like that. So we're going to drive to it. I don't know if it's to kind of keep people, if you live on the island, that's who gets to have their car. If you don't live in the island, you don't get your car in the off months kind of thing, which would make, it almost feels like reversed. Like you can't bring a car in the summer because then it's just, everybody who lives there just has a nightmare getting around. But it's a fishing village, town, island that did have I think there were shipbuilders previously for a while, and then when shipbuilding moved, it's kind of they've gone through periods of wealth and then periods of just having bad luck essentially, and they've sort of revamped as a more accessible version of Ischia or Capri. Accessible in the sense that it's much closer. It's still expensive to get to. It's still 20 to 25 euros to get to
Right.
via ferry.
Ischia is the cheapest one to get to.
Yeah,
Interestingly.
strangely.
Okay.
And I mean, it's still lovely. It's just, again, the only thing is from the photos, we haven't actually been, and we should go. We've been to Capri, haven't been to Procida, but from the photos, it looks like a lot of the photos are taking of this like waterfront pastel colored houses, but it looks like just beyond that is where that ends and it just becomes an Italian town again.
It's not like indicative of the entire island.
Exactly. Like, oh, I'm going to see all these colored houses everywhere. It kind of seems like that's just their thing. And they're very clear, like even on their website is basically dedicated to tourism. And they're very clear that like we're looking for ways to bring tourism because we're there's, I mean, in this 21st century of what is industry anymore, like, if you're not like working at a factory or you're making phones or something like that, like what are you doing? And it's like a place like Procida, it's like nobody's making boats there anymore. They're making them in some, what I don't know, actually I have no idea. I just know that I think Jeff Bezos' yacht was made somewhere in Netherlands and they had to take apart a bridge to get his yacht out.
I imagine it's a larger industry. It's not as localized.
Exactly. So I think that they're just like, yeah, it's tourism. And honestly, let's just make a cute island. So that would be the 3 islands that you can actually visit. But there are other seaside towns.
Yes, other coastal places. So there is Sorrento and the Sorrento coast, and then there's the Amalfi coast, which I think often get lumped together in people's minds, which is fair, understandable. So the closest to Naples is Sorrento, and one of the things that we talked about, one of the positive things, I guess, about Sorrento. Okay, here's the thing.
I love this already.
Sorrento and the towns along the Amalfi coast, in general, have a similar vibe. I'm not
Yes.
trying to lump all of them together.
No, I think that's fair,
but
though.
if you're thinking of I would like to visit this place and get a general idea of the place, they are fairly similar. So some of the benefits of visiting Sorrento over parts of the Amalfi Coast for me is that I'm pretty sure it gets a bit more of the sunset more of the year.
Yes.
Obviously, that changes depending on the time of year, but just because of the geography, specifically Amalfi and Positano get the sunset is a bit blocked because of the
mountains that are physically in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in the winter, when it sets more to the south, you can see it from Positano a bit better. But in the summer, where it's more likely you'll be visiting and swimming, it's not like, don't necessarily, especially in Positano and Amalfi and all those southern sort of towns, not southern, but southern facing towns, I wouldn't necessarily count on being able to see the sunset with like your like a Campari Spritz, Aperol Spritz in a sunset.
Exactly.
But Sorrento in the summer, you can, because while it faces north, to the west of it is not like, it's high up on a hill and there's nothing to the west of it. It's very much the point, like the terminus practically of that peninsula. So you can get a really gorgeous sunset. And of course they capitalize on that. There's a lot of outdoor things you can go and sit at and that face that way. Whereas Positano, I think, realized you cannot capitalize on it. So it just kind of faces the water. And it's, I mean, still really beautiful and still really lovely, but
yeah, but just different.
But different, exactly.
Another benefit of Sorrento is that, so it's not an entirely flat town. It is a mountainous town. It kind of goes up a mountain, but the sort of main part of town does have a fair amount of somewhat flat area for wandering around and shopping and eating and all that.
And even the hills are like, specifically in that little part of town, like the Marina Grande and the Marina Piccolo, the Marina Piccolo, the little marina, is a little bit, it's down some stairs and up some stairs. Still lovely, but the Marina Grande is a much more gentle slope.
Yeah.
So it's technically up a little bit, but it's not like, oh my God, I can't believe we thought coming down here was an idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a little more chill.
And it is pretty touristy, just as a setting expectations, especially in the height of tourism season, late spring to early fall, there's going to be lots of tourists. Likewise, in Positano and Amalfi, full of tourists.
Yeah.
Again, not a bad thing, just setting expectations. Some of the smaller towns on the Amalfi Coast, especially as you go towards Salerno, will be a little bit less touristy. But I mean, it's the Amalfi Coast. There's going to be tourists there. I guess I want to say my favorite town, a couple of my favorite towns on the Amalfi Coast are Vitri sul Mare. They are famous for making ceramics. Cettara is a sweet little town. It's very small.
Famous for anchovies, interestingly.
Yeah, and I don't eat anchovies, but I love that for them.
No. You like the beaches, which are pretty close.
Yeah, Chiaia has cool beaches.
Anchovies also like the beach, I assume, because they live near.
Yeah, me and anchovies. We're just vibing together in the ocean.
I love that.
There are towns up in the mountains that we didn't touch.
Ravello, basically.
Ravello is a famous one. Yeah, exactly.
There's also, if I may kind of jump in there real quickly, from the Naples side, there's Castellamare di Stabia, which is one of the stops you'll hit on both, I think, the Circumvesuviana and the Campania Express. We've talked about this before. Campania Express really only hits the tourism towns. It's a fast train, quote unquote. Fast mainly just because it doesn't hit the tourism, the non-tourism towns. I believe it still goes to Castellamare di Stabia, because in that town and just up the hill from there is Gragnano, which is super famous for making dried pasta. When I say famous, I mean arguably dried pasta started there. And they used to, in the old days, when they would dry the pasta, they'd bring out these racks of pasta onto the street, and the wind would just kind of come down the street and dry them, or sometimes up the street and dry it. And I think they even they claim it would come up from the sea, bringing in this salty air, so it would dry it and salt it, basically.
I don't know how much of a legend this is or kind of myth, but I think there are nearby towns who were also making pasta at a similar time, but they didn't succeed because the air just didn't, like the wind didn't move through the towns in the same way, so it didn't dry it just the same, and this was just the best way of doing it.
And I think some of it genuinely had trouble drying it, because this is before, like now, obviously they're all like sort of industrially dried, but before that it was like, this is just, they're not drying, they're just kind of getting...
It's like putting laundry out on the line.
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
gotta put it in the right spot at the right time of day and
hope for the best kind of thing. And so that is something, if you are interested in dried pasta, it is famous for it. And I say famous for, I don't know if Rumo is for Gragnano. Gragnano is from Gragnano. It's a pasta brand sold in, it looks like Garganano in English, and it's sold in the United States. It's like one of the sort of fancier brands. But if you're interested in pasta, like in a way of like, I'd love to kind of just see where it comes from. There are like little museums and factories you can visit and do taste tests and things like that. If it's something, I mean, again, I know it's not the same as there's like limoncello and things. I think those are more fun because it's like sweet and alcohol and lemons. But if you're somebody who's into food or getting into food, or you're into pasta or anything like that, that's just kind of a fun place. It's literally right on the same train route.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I want to go there now.
It's kind of just, I kind of want to try it out just so like, it seems like a little, I don't know, in my head, it's almost like the history of like, where cereal was invented or something. It's like, I wouldn't want to.
But it's like something so ubiquitous.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, What? That's really cool.
And I think it's also something arguably, I think I have now developed a pasta palate. But I think before I didn't. I was like, all pasta tastes the same. So I'll probably have the 40-cent bag versus the $1.10 bag or whatever it is. But now I have a very expensive tasting palate,
Yes,
apparently.
you-
So I'm like, oh, this is, oh, you got Davella. I can taste that. No, that's okay. No, it's fine. You could, okay, that's fine. So it's I think it's an interesting little mix there. And I actually part of mentioning it too is because I know that they're going through a bit of a tumultuous time right now because the United States is threatening to levy pasta tax on dried pasta not made in the United States of essentially 95%, I believe is the tariff. That's the number being floated. And essentially it'll double the price of pasta. So right now some of these brands do sell it for $3 a pound. It'll be basically $6 a pound. So they're essentially saying like our entire American market, which is about 20 to 40% of some of these pasta sales, like some of them have got much big, like Barilla obviously is massive in the United States and they are made in Italy. Some of the ones, Garofalo and Gragnano and Rumo, for example, are made in Italy. They are slowly getting a larger market share in the United States, but not to the point this is going to hurt them, but not to the point where that's ruined their company. But it's interesting where they're like, again, going back to the thing, like where can you make pasta? Arguably anywhere it's pasta, but
we know people who are small production people in Italy, but big enough that they can, I mean, still like family owned and fairly small, but big enough that they can just barely afford the fees, like the export fees and things like that in order to sell their product in the US. But they're still like very small production. So they're not going to be able to afford to do this. I mean, they could barely afford to do it normally. So with this, there's no way.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. So it'd be interesting. Sorry, I just want to bring that up. And I realized it got to a very unrelated point, but
No, it's fascinating.
Gragnano,
I mean,
it's there.
yeah, pasta.
And so, of course, there is also the Amalfi Coast, which I'm sure was what we were going
Amalfi?
to. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I was thinking, yeah, I'm sorry, because we were talking about the Amalfi Coast and your favorite towns of Via Trisumare, and I was like, well, you know what? And I completely went away from that, so I apologize.
So I'm like just poo-pooing all over these
Famous places.
So Positano and Amalfi are lovely. They're talked up a lot.
Yes, yeah.
So we have episodes on both of those places. If you're planning on going there, I highly recommend you listen to them because we're all about setting expectations. We don't want you to come visit and have all of these like Instagram ideas in your mind and then
I think
get
that's the
here
thing.
and feel bummed out.
Yeah,
We want
I
you
think
to have a
that's the thing.
good vacation. So, they're highly Instagrammed, social media about. If you are choosing Positano or Amalfi, if you're making that choice for yourself, Amalfi is very small. I know it's Amalfi of the Amalfi Coast. It's fairly small. It's kind of a transportation hub,
Yeah.
which is not cute. I don't know. That sounds rude, but
No, but it's
there's
the
a
entire,
lot of like traffic in the
there's a
center
lot of
town.
traffic. It's a bus exchange right near the water. So it's kind of like you don't really want to be at the beach in Amalfi because it's essentially just right behind you. There's a bunch of buses. The ferry comes kind of right up to the water there, so it's even worse, I think, arguably.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't mean this in a bad way, a dink kind of town. It's literally in the like crevice of two hills, and again, like originally it was for protection. It was like, and that's where you could easily get to your fishing boat. But I think there are some places on the Via Sumare being one of them, even arguably Chittara, which is still kind of also in the crevice, but Sorrento is not. Sorrento's got this really open, beautiful thing. There's a very resort town feeling obviously in Sorrento, and that's obviously when kind of more or less it was created. But Amalfi just has this sort of like, oh, it's just, I don't know. It's not as evocative as I thought. Before I went
Yes.
there, I had all these, again, Instagram pictures of it, and I was like, oh, you have to be in a very specific spot to kind of get this feeling.
I
And I
agree.
realized you can get that feeling so much easier in a large amount of other places, even along that coast, but even in Sorrento and Positano. So I would recommend, if you're thinking Amalfi, maybe it's not worth it. It could be worth it from Salerno just to check it out, but for the difficulty of reaching it from Naples, which is essentially a train down to Salerno and a bus over, or a train to Sorrento and a bus to over to Positano or down to Amalfi, it's such a pain to get to, and I don't think it's worth it necessarily.
I agree. Yeah. What are your feelings on Positano?
I think it's kind of the same, honestly. I mean, it's beautiful, worth it. I guess my thoughts, like if I had to encapsulate it in a tidy thing, especially because I'm already my little thing about Gragnano put us way over.
It was great though.
Is if you were just looking for what is the vibe, I just want to. I'm here for the vibe, for the aesthetics. I just want to. I want to know what people are talking about, and then I want to leave. Sorrento is the place, right? It has a very similar vibe to the rest of it. it is more touristy, I think, than a lot of people expect. And I think that's something that I've seen on Reddit a lot. People are like, I didn't realize how touristy it would be. Like, I really thought there would be some authentic restaurants, and not really. We actually have a friend who lives in Sorrento, and he often basically says it's a difficulty going out to eat as a Sorrentinian. He's like, there's not really places I want to go eat because there's a lot of it is for tourism, even like lower end tourism. So you have these like plastic menus with a bunch of pages and pictures, or higher end tourism where it's just expensive. And he's like,
And
so,
lower end tourism, to be fair, is still very expensive.
yes,
It's
very.
not like, it's not what I would consider cheap eats.
No, not at all. That's the thing. And there's still, I mean, because they still, it looks cute. You're outside, you're in the sun, you got this umbrella over you. They bring you, bread for the table, which is obviously not a thing in Southern Italy. It's like bread and oil for the table is not really a thing, but they'll do it because that's what people expect. So I think, but also at the same time, Sorrento has some really beautiful walks through some of the lemon groves that are like public, all these little walking paths. It's got the small marina and the large marina, especially kind of, again, I've used this word evocative, but if you're a photographer, a painter, anything like that, it's very much, the small marina especially has this kind of still old world vibe. There's still people who mend fishing nets there, and will do so inside or outside, kind of thing. So, and not like for photos, it's just that's their job.
Their job, yeah, exactly.
So there's definitely more of an authenticity happening there, whereas Positano, I'd say, is very much catering to the 19 yachts they have docked offshore.
Well, and they're all of the towns on the Amalfi Coast, if they're on the actual coastline, not necessarily in the mountain, they're physically bound by where they can have living space, like houses and things. So some of the towns that I like, I feel are closer to Salerno, and they just don't have as much tourism. They're tiny. They're still limited by how many people they can actually live in that town, but they're a bit less touristed, where Positano and Amalfi are very much bound by the landscape and are heavily touristed. So they just don't have the room necessarily to have like regular jobs like mending fishing nets and things like that.
And if I may, like with one last thought, I realized I gave a lot of thoughts, and I should give one last thought. Please don't obviously let any of this dissuade you from visiting the Amalfi Coast if you would so like to.
Yes.
But one thought is, looking at the Amalfi Coast, if anything is east of the Amalfi, the actual town, I would highly recommend taking a train from from Naples down to Salerno and then a bus over. It'll be a lot easier to do. It'll be a lot easier to see those. If anything is west of Amalfi, it'll probably be easier to take the train from Naples to Sorrento and then the bus over. Because you're forced to switch in Amalfi, it can make switching in Amalfi very arduous if you're trying to go beyond that to like Vetri su Mare, especially with how close that town is to Salerno. Again, this is also if you're not taking the ferry. There are ferries from Naples to Sorrento, to Positano, to Amalfi, and obviously go all the way around to Salerno. Likewise, Salerno all along up and down the Amalfi Coast, Capri, and Sorrento. So it kind of depends, but if you're just looking for one day, I need the vibe. It's also, I think we've done this before. It's lovely to go to Pompeii in the day, and then in the afternoon go out to Sorrento, have a drink, watch the sunset, and just
Yeah.
it's a lovely thing. And then go back into the city for dinner, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a way to really pack in a lot of experience into one day.
Absolutely. And I think that's everything.
I think that's everything.
Well, y'all, this has been a fun mini-series on Naples. I've been fully enjoyed it. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I hope that you have all learned a lot. And if this is your first sort of, introduction to Only a Bag, if you have not heard us before, and you'd like to follow along, you can do so if you liked what you listened to. And we do encourage you to also listen to the previous episodes where we really go in depth more.
For sure.
This was just kind of a little, just like if you're just about to go, if you're on the plane and you're just like, I need to listen to something, this would be or maybe the airport. This is the thing you should listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hope that you found this helpful, and feel free to contact us if you have any questions. And tanti abbracci.